Okay. Thursday edition of the After Show. Got Wink and Justice with you. Wink over here on the East Coast.
And Justice over here on the west coast of the contiguous United States of America. If it's Thursday, well, thank God it's Giovedi.
Heck yeah.
That's right. We honor the great God Joe here on the After Show because Thursday is truly the gateway to the weekend. Hey, Week.
Exactly.
Speaking of the gateway to the weekend, is your temperature above 19 degrees?
What do we got? We got 22 degrees today, so we're moving upward anyway. We got out of that 10 degrees nonsense. So at least it's in the 20s. It's supposed to go to around 30 today and then 35, 36 tomorrow. So we're moving in the right direction. So a reminder to get in the chat, just go to netrootsradio.com, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and on the right-hand side of the bottom of the page there is a link to the chat. So click that and join Dirty Lib and the rest of us in the chat.
That's right. And to the leftish of the chat room link are the donate, contribute buttons. You have a couple of choices there. Netroots Radio is in need, indeed, for some equipment and upgrades. And sorry about that. Yep. But you will be hearing a plea for funds rotating, fairly regularly throughout the broadcast day. Apologize for that, but
we need some upgrades, basically.
That and just they make you pay the bills, and I don't know. It's almost like there's planned obsolescence again.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, though, I mean, knock on wood. The mothership has been doing pretty well for the amount of work that the machines are put through. I mean, they hardly ever get turned off.
Right.
But we have techniques in which to make sure we can maintain them in their proper functioning, so that they how was it put? Works like a well-oiled machine.
Exactly.
But, yes, so we are making an entreaty, and thank you for your generosity. Also, after-show pods can be had by way of Spreaker.
Yes.
Fairly early. Wink,
I didn't have a chance yesterday, so.
Well, Wink not only, does this, helps, basically produce the after-show.
Yeah.
And then he not only is like a full host and producer on the Roundtable Roundhouse Power Hour, and also both of his shows, Wednesdays and Sundays.
Right.
He puts on both hats as producer and then sole host. and then he's like office manager too. Yeah. So the invoices come in and the bills go out. So sometimes, and then I forgot. Then he puts all the pods together.
Yeah.
So,
many hats, as they say.
The app show pod on Spreaker, which we call the raw data file, comes up fairly early, and then the perfected file that Wink puts together, just without all the hisses, much cleaner. Yeah. That comes up by way of Podbean, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, etc., etc., etc. All right. Well, Wink here along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon. The temperature has gone down from when I got up at 5:30 a.m. here on the West Coast. It's now 36.5 degrees.
Oh, okay.
Down from 37.5. It's come down a full. It's come down a full degree. I'm sorry. I was just looking out the window. It looks like a semi is pulled up, and sod delivery is going to be unloaded, and so you'll probably hear those backup beeps, beep, 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 beep,
right,
for when they pull the lift off and they're taking, let's see, oh my God, looks like there's 6 pallets of sod. I didn't think there was that much space. They must be doing something in whatever is the backyard. The house next to us was purchased. It's been on, was a foreclosure. It's really sad. There's apparently a lot of foreclosures in my neighborhood, or in my neck of Oregon. Seems like it's nationwide, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the structure lay vacant for a considerable time, and a little company, group of, I guess they're more than just friends, but doing a similar thing that my buddies and I did in the Bay Area. They purchase these homes, fix them up, and then put them on the market. So that's good. But they've been doing some work, and that's a good thing. And now we're going to hear a sod delivery be unloaded. So I hope you don't mind. Oh boy, let's see. We got lots of news. This is the problem. Do you remember during the campaign when Trump said, Hillary Clinton is the president, she'll be under investigation every single day?
Yeah, I think he was projecting.
No kidding.
I think he was.
Man, man, oh man.
Yeah.
Well,
I
got to tell you, he a lot of scuttlebutt about the Time interview that he had, because apparently there's just scores of lies that the Time magazine folks chronicled in this interview. And at some point, even the editors at Time was questioning the sanity, because the lies the falsehoods, what he said is just, I say that he knows it's happening. And what does every good mafia don do when they know they're going to come under indictment and they got to testify? They become a slobbering idiot, slumped over halfway in a wheelchair with a blanket up on their lap.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen. He's going to come in and then, they'll say, oh, well, we can't convict this poor man. Look at his condition. And then he'll mysteriously come to good health and live on Mar-a-Lago. And
yeah.
At least that's what he thinks is going to happen. Boy. And we got a little bit of news about Manafort and some financial ties. Follow the money.
Right.
That's where it happens. What else? The Supreme Court hearings in the Judiciary Committee. There was, David had addressed this just before the end of his show, is that there was a plan by Manchin and a few others to make a deal and push Gorsuch through, with the idea that later on the Republicans, will caucus with us on like a nominee for us. And I'm thinking, do they think Obama's still president? I mean, what are they thinking? And apparently Manchin goes, oh yeah, go ahead and kick me in the head again. I love it. 8 years of the Republicans acting like Lucy and then pulling the football away every single time.
Yep.
Every single time, Wink.
Yep.
Oh, you want chain CPI? Oh, that's not brutal enough.
Right.
Thank God they pulled the football away on that one.
Oh, yeah, indeed.
Well, I'm just saying, even when you offered him chain CPI, that wasn't good enough. Thank God.
Not
but
even close.
Do you really think that McConnell, who said, no, the black guy doesn't get a Supreme Court nominee the last year of his term,
right.
He already got one. Okay.
Yeah.
Or did he get two? Maybe he did. Sotomayor and...
Yeah, got two.
Well, three's just too many for the black guy.
Yeah, no question.
Obviously. And that's what it's about. That's the Republican seat. You're not going to change it. And the deal probably, as McConnell said, well, we'll identify a liberal seat. And we'll hold that open for you until, you get in to where you can get a nominee. And we'll let it go through. And you know what will happen? Is that Ginsburg will leave the bench for probably physical reasons, and that will remain vacant until they can fill it with another Republican when they get another fascist from, I don't know, another Cyrillic-speaking country? That's just me. Well, these are the issues that we will be attending to today, Wink. I liked our conversation with Angie yesterday. That was pretty fun.
Okay. Yep.
And, we did speak quite a bit about actually we didn't emphasize what a really good senator Al Franken is, because some people kind of laugh him off. Hey, he's a comedian. Well, pretty good interrogator. Pretty good interrogator.
Yeah.
Okay, the FBI's probe of Russian subversion expands to the continuing threats against the D.C. family restaurant targeted in Pizzagate. Now, this is why I take issue with folks like Jimmy Dore and others who belittle the aspect of the Russian involvement and subversion that we're paying too much attention. That particular incident brought a Looney Tune out of the woodwork, and he went down there and shot up this family restaurant with little kids inside.
Yep.
And this is now being investigated as part of the Russian subversion to, throw our whole society and system in disarray. And it looked like it worked. The U.S. Treasury is investigating Paul Manafort's shadowy Cyprus bank transactions, including the bank recently headed by Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross. Now, when Wilbur Ross is in jail, do you think they'll let him keep those like $10,000 a pair monogrammed slippers? They're very expensive. They look comfortable, actually. Yep. I would never wear them out on the patio.
Right.
In fact, I don't think I'd wear them on a bare floor. Has to be carpeted.
There you go.
I wonder if they'll let him wear those. Curious. And Secretary of State Rex Tillerson reveals a terrifying lack of knowledge about diplomacy and his own public responsibility. On the last half, we're going to report that Secretary of Labor nominee Alexander Acosta refused to testify under oath whether companies should be prevented from poisoning its workers. Can't do it. And we'll tell you why he didn't testify under. He probably would have, except for a particular threat from a particular Orange Dawn.
Right.
Sitting in the White House. Interesting. And while Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch was testifying before the House Judiciary Committee, the Supreme Court unanimously ruled he was wrong. Awkward. All that, plus the Connect Unite Act Daily Coast Community Calendar, and more. Always more and more and more on the after show with that ever so fine fellow over there on the East Coast, and his name is Wink, and this guy all the way back over here on the West Coast, and my name is Justice. And I always tell you, we do this 5 days a week for an hour-ish in this particular, specific, and peculiar tear in the fabric of space-time, because who loves your baby?
Exactly.
Oh, and one more thing. That's when my friends would hang up the phone. They'd go on and on and on. They'd go, oh, and one more thing. And then you go, what? And then go click.
Yeah.
So that's how they got the Columbo joke in there all the time.
Oh, Columbo.
Yeah. Yep. Well, heck. There's so much news, it's kind of hard to decide which one should go. I try not to pick the most obvious ones, though sometimes they have a intersection with the obvious news stories making the rounds.
Right.
I wanted really to speak about the London attack juxtaposed with the guy from Maryland, this white nationalist guy from Maryland who drove up to New York with a specific intent of killing black people with a knife, and he did. And of course he was referred to as essentially well attired. Well, what is it about white nationalists and New York press that go, oh, he killed this black guy, but he was really nattily attired.
Yeah.
Right. Did anybody ask what kind of attire, what kind of tonsorial conceit the attacker in London, was? No one asked that. But when you're a white nationalist, they're always curious. Boy, that's more expensive than a Brooks Brothers suit. In fact, Brooks Brothers is kind of slumming compared to the way these young white nationalists are roaming around. Boy. I thought about that. But there's so much going on, even with both those stories. So we have to limit ourselves. And I try to do all those stories. I think even 2 or 3 hours, we'd never get enough of them. Wink. Get through enough of them.
They just nonstop. Yep.
Yeah. All right. This one's first article is out of Newsweek by Jeff Stein. The FBI's widening investigation into Russian subversion is now looking into continuing threats against a Washington, D.C. pizza shop targeted by right-wing conspiracy mongers. Comet Ping Pong Pizza a popular family-oriented shop in an upscale Northwest Washington, D.C. neighborhood, came under relentless online attack last year because of its owner's friendship with senior members of the Hillary Clinton campaign, as well as David Brock, founder of Media Matters for America, a website that tracks press coverage critical of the Clintons. I don't know if you heard, but David Brock had a heart attack yesterday. Now he's fine. But when you think about like these Russians that were supposed to testify yesterday and one today, and one got killed, Wink, the one that was supposed to testify today about Russian involvement in the United States and bank stuff like this Cyprus bank thing. So when I hear like, oh, there's Russian stuff, there's not much to it. There's no direct evidence going, to the White House. And now the FBI is actually investigating. And we're hearing from intelligence committee members that, it's more than just coincidence.
Oh, yeah, got to be. I mean, these people are...
It's just more than circumstantial. I'm talking about the actual collusion with members of the White House.
Right.
And then you juxtapose that with these Russians falling like flies. Some of them literally from 4 stories up.
Yeah.
So David Brock having a heart attack, I went, whoa! Was that another one of those coincidental heart attacks? I hope not. But he's fine. They got him in the hospital, so... Now, the perpetrators of the harassment alleged, without any evidence, that Comet Pizza owner James Alefantis and the Clintons were operating a child sex ring in the restaurant's basement. This is the kind of thing that the Russians do. And when this first came out, I mean, everybody's, well, not everybody, but enough people said, this sounds like the Russian term for it, I believe, is kompromat. It's, essentially the disseminating of fake news. You accuse someone of something like I guess he likes to be peed on or something, or he likes to do the peeing. I don't know. It's the use of lies and nuance, that kind of thing. So when I heard this, I went, wow, all these Russian fighters, because right-wing conspiracy mongers, right? And at the time we heard a little bit of the Russian connection, but I remember joking about it. Wow, this is kind of like, wow, right out of the Duma. Last December, the flood of tweets supercharged by anonymous online bots motivated a 28-year-old North Carolina man by the name of Edgar Madison Welch to enter the shop with a loaded automatic rifle and fire off 3 rounds in search of the non-existent basement sex chamber. The store doesn't have a basement, but that doesn't matter. Welch reached a plea deal on March 15th and is scheduled to appear in court on Friday for sentencing. According to McClatchy News, the FBI's Russian influence probe agents are exploring whether far-right news operations, including the pro-Donald Trump sites Breitbart News and InfoWars, took any actions to assist Russia's operatives. Trump ousted National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and his son, a member of the Trump transition team, who were among those who boosted the so-called Pizzagate pedophile conspiracy theory. As part of the probe, FBI agents on Monday interviewed a neighborhood friend of Alefantis. Newsweek is withholding the woman's identity at her request. She told the agents that her mother had received a threatening call about her grandson Monday night, following the House Intelligence Committee's day-long televised hearing on Russian interference in the 2016 elections and connections between unnamed Trump associates and the Kremlin. It was horrifying, the woman said, of the anonymous telephone call, in which a man relayed private details about her son. It was an escalation of the Pizzagate campaign, she said. Someone spending time and money to harass me. Wink, they're going after the neighbors. According to one account, one of the principal proselytizers of the Pizzagate conspiracy appears to be David Seaman. Now, before I began this particular paragraph, the preceding line did specify that the FBI did not immediately respond to requests for comment. So this David Seaman, a one-time unpaid Huffington Post contributor, yeah, I guess that's one way of putting it, and author of Dirty Little Secrets of Buzz, How to Attract Massive Attention for Your Business, Your Product, or Yourself. Seaman's personal YouTube channel has been viewed over 6 million times since October of 2016, when he began writing about Pizzagate. According to one account, he is also the founder of Shutterline Interactive, a vehicle for rapidly deploying publicity stunts. In a 2008 YouTube interview to publicize his book, Seaman said, "I would protest gravity if I thought it was going to get me buzz." Now, remember we heard about the Macedonia hackers, right? They created these bots that essentially promoted right-wing conspiracy theories and sent right-wingers into tizzies of orgasmic delight over stories like Pizzagate. And the premise is that these Macedonia kids were doing it all for financial gain, because the more clicks, the more money they get.
Yeah,
and Democratic liberal sites just they weren't making any money off of them, right? That's why you didn't see the massive propaganda perpetrated and predicated upon lies and exaggerations of Trump or whatnot, right? So we just didn't see that coming to the left. And the reasoning was that, well, liberals don't do that kind of clicks. They're more reasonable, right? The irrational thinkers. Whereas the right wingers, they want some confirmation bias and they click.
Clickbait. Yeah.
Well, it turns out that that's not the only reason, and maybe not the primary reason. Because the hacks coming out of Macedonia and I believe Bulgaria or another one in the Baltic area.
Right.
Yeah. Led by the FSB. Maddow went through that last night. Just letting people know. So, in an online March 3rd video of this year, he talked about his journey from HuffPo to Pizzagate. He and others are calling for a March on Comet Pizza, Saturday, March 25th. Yeah, this March 25th. If you don't know who David Seaman is, he's the self-appointed head spokesman of the Pizzagate movement, according to another account on Reddit. If you are a Pizzagator, this association should make you very nervous, because David Seaman is a mentally unstable con man. And Seaman could not be reached for comment. And I got to tell you, if you're a Pizzagator, you might be a kind of an unstable, persona as well. I'm just saying. Might need some self-reflection on that one. Oh, boy.
Yeah, I thought that already passed, died
Nope.
out.
Still going on. We don't hear it as news because if they publicize it, it'll be worse. And trust me, now that this article is out there, neighbors of this fellow and they're just going to be inundated. It's a combination. It's not just coming from the Russians in this particular case, because we're talking about Trump brown shirts too, and they can be motivated in lone wolf fashion. But that's exactly what the Russians do too. They count on it. That's part of what is the whole aspect of them going to war with us. I read an article. It's like, oh, the Russians aren't a big threat because they're like spending less money on, like ships and airplanes. Well, just before Trump took office, there was a big conference, and it was highly publicized, where the Russian military said, we're putting all of our efforts into essentially what we did to America and what we did to Greece and what we did in the Ukraine, not the bombings and stuff, but going after infrastructure and basically destabilizing the whole society. They are at war with us. And we have to wrap our heads around that. Just because it's not being done with nuclear bombs coming out of the sky, the, atomic effect is the same. Except in this situation, it's sort of like, Back during the Bush years, it's like we were under attack, but okay, just go to the mall and spend money. Don't think about it. It'll be okay. Remember those days? This next article is by Travis Geddes out of Raw Story. The U.S. Treasury Department is probing the offshore financial transactions of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort as a part of a federal anti-corruption probe into his work in the Ukraine. Information related to the transactions was turned over earlier this year to the department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network by investigators in Cyprus. A source familiar with the case told the AP that the Treasury Department requested the documents, and the Cyprus Attorney General was made aware of the U.S. request. Federal prosecutors began looking into Manafort's paid work for the pro-Russian Party of Regions as part of a broader investigation into stolen Ukrainian assets after the nation's Vladimir Putin-aligned President Viktor Yanukovych was ousted in 2014. You know how they did it, Wink? Under the auspices of government fiat, they identified companies and said, you didn't really pay your tax bill properly. We're just going to have to take over your company. And then they did. And then the government officials who took over the company then became, they sold off the assets or laundered money through it. It's just really crazy. It's sort of like the kind of government you would envision if the Don Corleones had ever taken over.
Right.
In fact, that's one of Manafort's, excuses. He says, I wasn't working and getting paid for any of this by Don Corleone. I was working for Sonny.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, you got to think of it in those terms. The AP reported earlier this week that Manafort secretly developed a plan to advance Putin's interest in the U.S. in 2005, a year before he moved into Trump Tower. Now, why would any, investigative organization and American intelligence and law enforcement want to, maybe surveil Trump Tower during that time? Can you imagine why they would want to do that? Gee. I don't know. Manafort quit the Trump campaign in September as questions began to swirl about his work in the Ukraine, and his ties to the Putin regime have raised new questions as the FBI investigates possible collusion between Donald Trump's campaign and the Russian government. Financial records obtained by the AP show Manafort sometimes routed financial transactions through Cypriot shell companies, including a $19 million deal in 2014 with Russian billionaire Oleg Deripaski to buy Ukrainian cable television provider Black Sea Cable. Deripaski, a Russian aluminum magnate and close ally of Putin, said afterward that Manafort and his associates refused to tell him how the money had been used. Well, Manafort pitched a confidential plan in 2005 to Deripaski to promote Russian interests through U.S. media, and the AP reported that he signed a $10 million annual contract with the oligarch, with whom he maintained a business relationship until at least 2009. Now, of course, we went over that yesterday when this exploded about the $10 million annual salary he had been receiving. And those AP reporters who had broken that case, they dig further, and now we're following the money, aren't we? The Republican political strategist also reportedly tried to get Deripaski a U.S. visa in 2000 over objections by the FBI, which believed the billionaire had lied to agents during an interview. Have you ever killed anybody in your quest to become aluminum magnate of Russia? And he probably said no. And he actually did many times. I mean, Wink, it was, they went to the mattresses. That's how it was in Russia. Literally, owners of companies and people who wanted to own companies were in physical firefights. Literal shooting and killing. Whoever came out top gets to be, aluminum king. The White House was accused of withholding information from Congress about whether Trump or his campaign affiliates had ever received loans through the bank, which is partially owned by Viktor Veliksberg and Vladimir Strilakovsky, two longtime Putin allies. The AP found in another case that a Manafort-linked company received $1 million in October of 2009 from a mysterious firm through the Bank of Cyprus, which Trump's Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross oversaw as chairman until his Senate confirmation. How convenient, huh, Wink? Ross verbally denied any knowledge of such transactions, but the White House refused to release a written response to a query from Democratic senators. Now, the AP reported that Manafort's mysterious transaction more than 7 years ago was split in half the same day the payment went through the Bank of Cyprus and were dispersed in two payments of $500,000 to accounts with no obvious owner. And Cyprus has a well-known history of money laundering before joining the European Union in 2004. Now, you would think individual banks might not be up to speed on, like, well, we can't money launder anymore. A Ukrainian lawmaker released other financial documents earlier this week from the party of region's so-called Black Ledger that show Manafort laundered those payments using offshore accounts in Belize and Kyrgyzstan. This was actually shown on Maddow last night. Let's be clear, the guy held up documents in front of his PC camera over Skype, and there's really no way to verify this, but interesting nonetheless. So on that same day, October 14th of 2009, Manafort's name is listed in a $750,000 entry in the Black Ledger, which was found at party headquarters during the 2014 riots that investigators view as a party slush fund. Okay. And Manafort is accusing Lyshenko of trying to blackmail him. I didn't do anything. All right. Well, curiouser and curiouser, Wink, curiouser and curiouser. This is also by Travis Geddes out of Ross Story. An international law expert is deeply alarmed by Secretary of State Rex Tillerson's apparent lack of understanding of his job and his own public responsibility. Daniel Dresner, a professor of international politics at the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy at Tufts University, has hammered Tillerson for his refusal to speak to the press. But he's aghast at the Secretary of State's comments to the one reporter he allowed to accompany him on a recent trip to Asia. I was wrong about encouraging Tillerson to speak with the press, Dresner wrote for the Washington Post. Tillerson should shut the heck up until he demonstrates that he knows what he's talking about. That interview was terrifying, but not for the reason that Twitter focused on. Social media users reacted to Tillerson's claim that he did not want to take the job, but did so at his wife's urging. But Dresner was shocked that the former Exxon CEO had never met Donald Trump until he asked him to become the nation's top diplomat. Tillerson explained that he preferred to keep his policy decisions quiet until they were ready for formal announcement, which Independent Journal Review reporter Aaron McPike, that's the one reporter he allowed to go on. Now, she takes umbrage when she's described as a conservative reporter, even though she's writing for the Independent Journal Review. I'm not conservative. Well, she likened it as comparing to a product unveiling by Apple. We don't tell anybody what happens until, the product shows up in August. Then you know. But Dresner said that displayed a profound misunderstanding of diplomacy. No doubt there are diplomatic initiatives that fall under the category of let's keep this quiet until everything has been worked out, Dresner wrote. But if Tillerson thinks that is all the Secretary of State does, then he's rejecting more than half of his job description. Reassuring allies requires some public signaling. Credible commitments require even more public signaling. Promoting ideas like human rights or religious freedom through publicizing annual reports is a really super inexpensive way of sending a message. Dresner said that that's where Tillerson's lack of government experience hurts him. None of this is rocket science to anyone who has spent some time in public policy. Tillerson, of course, is completely new to this being the first Secretary of State without any government or military experience. All you got to know is, and B, is friends with Vlad. Seems like that's the main requirement in this administration. Dresner was also dismayed that Tillerson's rationale for cutting the State Department budget, especially given its role in the three-step process for defeating ISIS that he described to McPike, the reporter. Well, gosh, it sounds like this three-step process, there has to be a surge in diplomacy after a military drawdown, Dresner wrote, which makes sense with the failed states of Syria, Libya, etc. But I don't see how solving conflicts leads to any reduced demand for diplomatic resources. If anything, there should be a surge in resources to make sure the transition and stability phases work as planned. Remember when we invaded Iraq and we all complained, well, we got an entry strategy but no exit strategy. And all we heard is that, don't worry, we're just going to win. And we said, yeah, but, what are you going to do? Is groove on the rubble? And, of course, they lied to us because what they really meant was, yeah, man, it'll be so cool. And now we got ISIS, right? Okay. All right, let's get to our Jim Hightower break. We got a new one for you. We'll come back, go through the Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast community calendar. And then the stories for the last half. Commerce and the Supreme Court. You are listening to the After Show on Netroots Radio with Wink and Justice, and we will be right back.
You know what our country needs right now? I think we need something that can bring us together again, something that can heal the raw wound of deep political division imperiling our society. And guess what? One company has come out with just the balm America needs, an ad for a luxury automobile. Seriously? Yes, the cultural bridge builders at Cadillac have produced an advertising campaign intended not only to sell its pricey cars, but also to heal America's social divide. How? By reminding TV audiences about everyone's desire to achieve the American dream, as symbolized, of course, by the status symbol of owning a Cadillac. Seriously? Yes, the ad begins with a stark declaration. We are a nation divided. That's what they tell us. Then Cadillac's ad suddenly shifts gears, gliding into an uplifting, touchy-feely montage of all in this together inclusiveness. We carry each other forward, the narrator purrs, no matter who we are or what we believe. Mustering all of the modesty you would expect from a Cadillac executive, the corporation's marketing head explains that we didn't want to enter the political debate, we wanted to transcend it. Ah, yes, and how better to go beyond rancorous political disharmony than to drive away from it in a luxury car. This is Jim Hightower saying the corporate honchos tried out this message on an unbiased audience of Texas Cadillac dealers. And guess what? They loved it. One dealer gushed that the ad identifies the ultra-expensive car with, quote, unity, optimism, courage. Seriously? Yes, apparently Cadillac thinks the right and left, the rich and poor, can all become e pluribus unum again by unifying around America's new egalitarian slogan, a $100,000 car in every garage.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Okay, we're back.
And indeed, we are back. And thank you for sticking with us. This is the After Show with Wink and Justice. Justice here along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the West Coast. Wink is in upstate New York, 21 on the East Coast. Our crew are the ethereal creatures who reside in the cloud, whose advanced intergalactic technical abilities allow Netroots Radio, thus by extension the After Show, to span the globe, the solar system, out past the Oort cloud, and beyond. Woohoo, you bet. Okay, today's Connect, Unite, Act Daily Coast Community Calendar is facilitated by Paradise 50, and he begins his diary about Lyme disease in the area that he's at, and the trapping of mice. And now, of course, Lyme disease comes from ticks that alight upon usually ruminants like deer. Though they do have a big mouse problem in that part of California, and ticks can, be transferred for that too. So there's a lot of medical discussion and debate about Lyme disease and chronic Lyme disease. So I'm not going to get into that argument. But I do know that ticks are not a good thing, and tick-borne diseases are even worse. So take care. And I don't know. If you kill the mice with poisons, eventually the fleas have nowhere to go, and they go on you.
Yeah.
That's right. That's why the people are scratching all over the street, because the rabbits and the rats had nothing to eat.
Exactly.
Been there before. Okay, Wisconsin Cossacks are putting a group together, and Chris the Kaladem is doing that, so cosmail him if you'd like to become part of Wisconsin Co's. And Navajo maintains the event list, so cosmail her if you have any diaries about your event, or if you have changes or additions to any of the events that are coming up or that you know about. Colorado Community Cossacks, led by Left Candidate in Colorado Tim, hold a Caffeinating Liberally meetup every fourth Saturday of every month, and they'll be doing it this Saturday, March 25th, at Common Grounds Coffee House, 44th and Vallejo in Denver, from 9 a.m. to noonish, by the table by the piano. Oh, yeah. That sounds like fun. So RSVP through Colorado Tim and Left Candid. When you go there and you see there's no names, you may think that no one's showing up, but I don't know. I think if you think about Berg, the radio personality who was killed by white nationalists, outside of Denver, maybe people are a little wary,
right,
of announcing their liberal intentions. So I don't blame them. New England Cossacks, let's see. They are going to be meeting up April 22nd at noon at Flatbed Pizza in Portland, Maine. Wow. Please cosmail NHawks42 to RSVP for a seat. Cool. Well, that's a new one. New York Cossacks are going to be meeting Navajo on April 23rd, which is a Sunday, at Spitzer's Corner, 101 Rivington Street in the Ludlow District at high noon. RSVP with Navajo through Cosmail to attend that. Thinking Fella and Ojibwa are organizing the third Epic Glacier National Park meetup held June 30th through July 2nd. Go to the link at the Connect Unite Act Daily Coast Community Diary for important planning details. The link is there. And boy, they've got quite a few people going. That sounds like real fun. And the Netroots Nation 2017 Daily Co's annual Cheers and Cheers dinner will be occurring Wednesday, August 9th at 5:30 p.m. at a location to be determined after you cosmail Navajo to let her know of your intentions and get a seat. And then she finds out how big the venue is. And then it's always smaller. And when I say you may be stuck with a third-rate karaoke bar in Atlanta, yeah, it might not even be in Atlanta.
Right.
So that is your Connect Unite Act Daily Coast Community Calendar for the 23rd of March of 2017. I believe it's a happy birthday to Rowing Girl right now. Happy birthday, Rowing Girl. I don't know if I should announce her age.
Well,
I mean,
think it's
she told
39.
us last night. There you go.
Yeah. Again, I think somewhere in there. Yeah, but happy birthday, yeah.
Happy birthday. Okay. Alexander Acosta. Hopefully I muted soon enough because I had just had a sneeze there and I wasn't able to cover it up. So hopefully you didn't hear that. Okay. Alexander Acosta, Secretary of Labor nominee. Boy. You know, if the President of the United States and I don't know, most of his crew are under FBI investigation for treason, shouldn't we just stop all these hearings until we can find out? Until we can find out what the hell is going on.
Yeah, I don't see whether there's any really big hurry for these hearings, for these Supreme Court things and stuff.
Which also begs the question, Spicer came out yesterday and said, everybody filled out their forms the way you're supposed to. We have no idea if we have foreign agents working with us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, there's cables going out to diplomats all over the world about protocols on identifying population groups for extreme vetting for the travel ban.
There you go.
They can't even vet their own people, and they're saying, "Oh, but there's a bunch of amorphous brown people out there who are the real threat to us."
Yeah.
Okay, this is by David Ferguson out of Raw Story. Okay, President Donald Trump's. Oh God, I said it. I mean, Donald Trump's nominee for U.S. Secretary of Labor refused to state under questioning whether he would uphold a rule that protects U.S. workers from being poisoned by silica dust on the job. At a Wednesday confirmation hearing, Senator Elizabeth Warren said, "The question is, will you stand up for 150 million workers? And that starts with making certain that workers are safe on their jobs." Now, do you understand what goes on here? I get this from, conservative, redneck, neo-Nazi white nationalists all the time out here in my redneck part of the woods. They hear certain things like, what was this now? 150 million workers? Will you stand up for 150 million workers? That workers are safe? They hear that, and in their brain they go, that's some sort of liberal thing. We can't have that.
Yep.
Worker safety, that's some sort of liberal thing to sort of divide us.
Yep. Socialism. Yep.
So Acosta hears this, and he goes, I'm not saying anything on record on for worker safety. The Don, I don't know, he's got an axe handle, and there might still be an axe on it. That's how they do it in Russian mobster movies, right? They come up behind people during the conference. They, embed an axe in the back of somebody's head. That go, felt bad doing that, but business is business. Warren pointed to a regulation that is currently protecting millions of workers from exposure to, quote, lethal cancer-causing silica that went into effect last summer, end quote. Will you promise not to weaken the silica rule in any way, she asked. Acosta replied that President Trump has ordered all cabinet secretaries to review all rules passed by their agencies under former President Barack Obama and consider whether they should be repealed or amended. In other words, anything that Obama had, we got to get rid of. People breathing in silica dust, he didn't want that? Well, it must be something we want then, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm aware of that, Warren said, but this is a rule that has already gone into effect, and I just want to make sure you're not going to weaken the rule any further. Senator, I understand, Acosta said, but Donald Trump, he said the president, directed each cabinet officer to review all rules and to make determinations whether any rules should be revised. And so, based on that executive action, I cannot make a commitment. It's good I wasn't on that committee. Because I would have asked something like, so what you're saying is that you can't make a commitment that if an employer decided to hold his employee's head underwater until he drowned, that you can't make a commitment until you have reviewed to see whether that rule should be revised. Doesn't make any sense. Respirable crystalline silica, also known as silica dust, is a byproduct of certain industrial processes from mining to electronics manufacturing. When introduced into the lungs, it settles into airways and blocks the lungs' ability to absorb oxygen from the air, a chronic, often lethal condition known as silicosis. Or maybe it should be silicosis. That's it, silicosis. The CDC estimates that 250 workers die from silicosis every year in the U.S., and more than 1 million face the risk of silica dust exposure on the job. In 2016, the OSHA implemented rules requiring companies to protect workers from silica inhalation and poisoning. But of course, Wink, Republicans and other pro-business interests are fighting the rule as an unnecessary impediment to making profits.
Right, right.
Acosta continued to evade Warren's questions about the silica rule, falling back again and again on Trump's order to review all rules. You've said that, and I've heard it, Warren said. I'm trying to ask for your opinion, and you're telling me you want to be Secretary of Labor, but you can't tell me whether or not high on your list of priorities would be to protect a rule that keeps people from being poisoned? Acosta replied that the office would review the rule and uphold whatever rules he deems appropriate. And you will decide if it's appropriate? I think we've got how this dance works.
Yeah.
Because he'll come out and he'll say, like Mulcahy said, Meals on Wheels, they feed people at dinner and by morning they're hungry again. How can you tell me the thing works?
Yeah.
They fed them dinner and by breakfast they're hungry again. Acosta will come out and say, we're getting rid of the silica dust rule because, we're saving you money. It's for your own good. I think there should be sort of like maybe even an unwritten rule, Wink, that when the President of the United States and his crew are under investigation for treason, that their policies and their appointments should be probably held up. I mean, Jesus H, my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Local municipality and law enforcement officers confiscate people's property right now.
Right.
For just being suspected of partaking in a crime, not convicted. They shut your business down while you're under investigation. They freeze your assets. And that's just for driving through. Oh, we think you might be transporting drugs. Well, I'm not. Well, we're going to just have to confiscate your car and find out. And then there's no drugs there, and then you try to get your property back, and then you have to jump through hoops to do that. So if
Lucky
you
to
can do
get it
that,
back. You're lucky to get it back.
If the President of the United States is under investigation for treason, I think maybe assets should be frozen. Business should be halted.
Yeah.
Until we can figure out what the hell is going on. He said it. He said it just like that. And, of course, we know where Acosta is at, too. Anything that Obama put in, they got to purge.
Right.
Mattis is under assault right now because, he's kind of a reasonable guy in some ways. I mean, they call him Mad Dog, right? But Mad Dog's the adult in the room. And the right wing and Trump people are pissed off because instead of getting sycophants in the Pentagon, he's been appointing people who actually worked during the Obama administration. Even though they were there before Obama, They work during, so therefore they're working for him. Well, okay. I don't know why Neil Gorsuch is even at a table answering questions to become Supreme Court justice. Shouldn't we afford that to Merrick Garland first, at least? This by Ian Melheiser out of Think Progress. About 40 minutes after Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch began his second day of testimony before the Senate Judiciary Committee, all 8 of the justices he hopes to join said a major disability decision, Gorsuch wrote, in 2008 was wrong. Unanimous decision, 8-0. Now, I would suppose that if Gorsuch was sitting on the bench, and knowing the rules for Supreme Court justices that they can determine whether to recuse themselves or not, the rule would have been 8-1. That's just me, but I know how these Republicans work. Both the Supreme Court's decision and Gorsuch's 2008 opinion involve the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, which requires that public school systems, which take certain federal funds, provide a, quote, free, appropriate public education, end quote, to certain students with disabilities. Applying this law to individual students, the Supreme Court acknowledged in its Wednesday opinion in Andrew F. versus Douglas County School District, is not an exact science. A focus on the particular child is at the core of the idea, Chief Justice Roberts wrote for the unanimous Supreme Court. The instruction offered must be specially designed to meet a child's unique needs through an individualized education program. But while this process can be difficult, it must provide meaningful educational benefits to disabled students, which brings us to Judge Gorsuch's error in a 2008 opinion. That case, brought by an autistic student whose parents sought reimbursement for tuition at a specialized school for children with autism, had Gorsuch reading the idea extraordinarily narrow. Under Gorsuch's opinion, a school district complies with the law so long as they provide educational benefits that, quote, must merely be more than de minimis. Now, de minimis is a Latin phrase meaning so minor as to merit disregard. So Gorsuch essentially concluded that the school district complies with their obligation to disabled students so long as they provide those students with a little more than nothing. That's all you need to do. Just a little more. Like, you can get through the door. You have access to the school. We never said anything about an education.
Right.
All 8 justices rejected Gorsuch's approach. Chief Justice Roberts wrote the idea that or program is markedly more demanding than the merely more than de minimis test applied by the 10th Circuit. Indeed, Roberts added, Gorsuch's approach would entirely strip many disabled students of their right to an education. The unanimous Supreme Court concluded, in most cases, a student's progress should be measured according to whether they are able to keep up with their non-disabled peers. And in a classroom, regular examinations are administered, grades are awarded, and yearly advancement to higher grade levels is permitted for those children who attain an adequate knowledge of the course material. So for this reason, a school district's plan for a particular disabled student typically should be reasonably calculated to enable the student to achieve passing marks and advance from grade to grade. But it looks like Gorsuch says, no, we don't need to do that. Okay. So adding the word merely to this framework, the word effectively transformed the floor that the court placed below disabled students into a ceiling. Gorsuch transformed a rule instructing school districts that they must do more than nothing into a rule instructing them that they don't need to do anything more than just a little more than nothing. Okay. That's how they split hairs, Wink. All right, let's get out of here. It's Thursday. We got Hartman coming up about 6 minutes after the hour. In the interim, we'll listen to Montauk Point by William Orbit. And got great content. Randy Rhodes, once again, has been on fire. I should mention that there is an Intel hearing going on and meeting. Maybe C-SPAN is playing that. I heard already Nunez has apologized. I think the apology should come behind bars, but, that's just me.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll meet you here bright and bushy tomorrow morning, same time, same place, same station. And so stay listening to Netroots Radio 24/7, 365. Why? Because who loves you, baby? Okay, Wink, I will see you on the other side.
All right. We're out.